I want to apologize about that squeaking going on in the last video. I don't know what that is upstairs. I can't imagine. Maybe just people walking around. Sorry about that. Anyway, Sunday morning, Lance, he was the first to get up, and I got him on his way again, and he'll make it home. I'll probably leave him out of the picture for a while now, but he's not gone for good. The second one of the major characters here to wake up and get going was, no surprise, Elaine. She was kind of excited about this idea of going to visit her new friends, Rachel and Jacob, at their or to go to their fellowship. They didn't call it a church; they called it a fellowship, and so she was curious about that. Rachel, both of them assured her she'd be really welcome, and so she borrowed. She'd arranged that the night before that she'd borrow Viola's car, and off she went. She had directions. Didn't have any trouble finding the place. It was not that far from the moot point, really. It was. I guess I didn't explain this. It was west of Richland and somewhat south. There was farm country out through there, and Rachel's dad was a farmer. He had a farm, and in that area there were enough Mennonites that lived in that area that they these two cats don't get along, that oh that they had built a church, we'd call it, and there they met. There was a hitching rail. I mean, there were horse and buggies there, but there were also cars. These were not Amish. They were Mennonites, but they were horse and buggy Mennonites. And well, anyway, there Rachel and Jacob had gone plenty early because they wanted to make sure they were there to greet Elaine when she got there. No surprise, they like to be together anyway. And Elaine was wearing a dress, which she'd been told by Rachel that she should, a long dress, that would be the polite, she would be most comfortable dressed like that, because that's the way all the other women would be, even the little girls, they would be wearing dresses. Well, really, Elaine only had that one dress, which was white like a bathrobe. It looked a lot like a bathrobe, and it was kind of incongruous to see her that. And she had her hair covered. She had a scarf that she had over her hair, just as Rachel had advised she should. But she looked so different. But they were, as Rachel knew, they didn't care. If she had come in slacks, the Mennonites would have been okay with that. They were fine with it. And so when she went in, Rachel introduced her to a lot of people, and they were all real nice to meet her. Now some of the young men, I mean, they were really taking a look at Elaine, not because of the way she was dressed. That was in their eyes. Really, there's that squeak. I think it's the floor. In their eyes, a woman in a print dress was a prettier way to dress. But Elaine was a gorgeous woman. There was no doubt about it. Some of those, or all those guys, they noticed that. Well, in the service, the thing, I could make this way too long, so I'll be brief about it. At the beginning, before the service got going, I call it service, there was no clergy, nobody was wearing anything special, just their nicest clothes. And a man got up and he invited suggestions for singing, because they like to start by singing hymns. And they didn't have them planned, they just kind of took suggestions from the congregation. And the first one was Amazing Grace, which Elaine had heard that before. Well, all they did, there was no piano or organ. He just had a tuning fork, which he bumped on the chair and listened, and then he hummed three notes, da da da, a triad. Elaine didn't know what that was called, but that's all he did. And then he conducted. He turned into a conductor, and the music around Elaine, she'd never heard anything quite like it before. It was like she was in the middle of a choir. Uh, and she had a hymnal. They all had hymnals. And at first she didn't sing because she was just so amazed to hear that. Uh, but then she started to sing, but she noticed that what she knew was what the woman, let's see, on her left was singing, and she was sitting beside Rachel, who was singing something a little different. Uh, she was singing alto. I might as well tell you, but see, Elaine didn't know these terms and hadn't had this experience. Now, the next one over was Jacob, and he was singing still something different. And there was a man behind her with a really big, deep voice, and he was singing something different. Well, she was sitting there right beside a soprano, an alto, a tenor, and behind her was a bass. So she was in the middle of a four-part harmony quartet. But the whole congregation was the same, even the children. Mostly the children sang the melody. Well, she couldn't believe it. But she had that gift of music. So she sang the first verse like she knew it. And the second verse, already she was singing what Rachel was singing. She didn't really know how to read music, but Rachel reached over and pointed so she could see. And so she kind of fit right in. Well, then there was another hymn. What was the second one? She didn't know it so well. She didn't know it at all. It Is Well With My Soul, I think was the name of it. When Peace Like a River. I don't exactly know it. But the same thing, he gave different key, but he used his tuning fork and gave ba ba ba, just three notes, a triad, and he conducted, and it was just like being in this incredible a cappella choir. She didn't know the word a cappella either. It was just such an amazing musical experience. And there was going to be one more before anybody did a talk. One more, and it was a little boy asked for this. He was about 8 years old, maybe not quite that old. He wanted to sing "We Plow the Fields and Scatter," and so they'd find the numbers, and they found it, and sure enough, that was a lively one. You could tell there was a kind of a good feeling about the fact that it had rained. We plow the fields and scatter the good seed on the ground, but it is fed and watered by God's almighty hand. He sends the snow in winter, the warmth to something, the grain, the I can't remember, and soft refreshing rain. But anyway, it was a fun thing, and already Elaine was really glad she'd gone. If that had been the end of it right there, it would have been fine.